I'm making more progress on the redesign of my main D&D setting, and I thought I'd do a video about my thoughts regarding how I want to approach the design of the gods and the cosmology. As a quick aside, before I get into all that, I've settled on a name for the world, Ichoros. Like I said, I just wanted a modification of Ichoria, and after spending literally months and months tinkering with different variations, Ichoros is the name that hits the right tone and is the right balance of exotic yet practical for people to say. There is also a title for the campaign setting, but I'm not ready to publicly reveal that yet, so just hang tight and that will come in the future. Also, since doing my initial video about the redesigning the planes of this setting, I've made some interesting developments on that front too, so also more on that to come. To reiterate, what I'm aiming to do with the setting is to avoid some of the main problems that I see with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Things like incoherent cosmology and lore that is full of glaring unanswered questions and plot holes and contrived changes over time, and really just an overload of cramming too much in all at once. Also, a big problem that I see with 5e is this multiverse setting, and there are just endless issues that arise from that, where things end up kind of meaningless and inhuman and with just wonkiness to the storytelling. Another big problem I see, and this applies not just to 5e D&D, but I think just games and even media in general, is a shift away from higher artistic aims, and instead it replaces the artistic, the soulful, and the timeless with the political, the contrived, and the contemporary. Mythic storytelling, at its best, has certain qualities that resonate within the human heart. I want to try to do my part to keep the flame of genuine inspiration burning. So part of that involves trying to find solutions to the current problems that have been laid at our feet, or laid upon our gaming tables. As best I can see, there are two sides to this, two main areas that need addressing. One is building a coherent, internally consistent setting that is not full of incongruencies and tone clashes and cosmological holes. You could say this is the logical side of things, really engineering and technical in a way. The other side is reconnecting with the timeless qualities of mythic storytelling. This is the creative side of things. It involves all kind of inspiration and dreams and imagination, and when it gets down to it, an openness of heart. So I'm using this two-pronged approach, starting with the big structure of the Ichoros setting, the cosmology, and the planes, and the origin myths, and the gods, and things like that. Big scale stuff. So, the gods originate from the glorious domains of heaven, which we can just refer to as heaven for short. There's an elder myth that's been coming to me, a kind of origin story of the setting, but it's not quite ready yet. What I can say is that there are different kinds of gods, and each will have its own named category, a unique proper name for those who want to geek out on the lore of the setting. But we can call them generalized things too. We can say greater gods, regional gods, and outer gods. The greater gods are few in number. They are higher in power, though, and they are recognized in most places in the entire setting. Regional gods are higher in quantity. They're not quite as powerful as the greater gods, and are typically only recognized or worshipped in limited parts of the setting, maybe in just a few nations, maybe in just one nation, or maybe in just one city-state or one local region. Outer gods are not really known or worshipped, except by maybe specific factions or certain dedicated cults. There will also be things like titans, archfiends, archfey, demigods, beings that are not fully deities, but could be near to that threshold. All of these gods and outsider-type creatures are spirits. They dwell in outer planes, they are connected to the essences of their planes, they are immortal. They have spiritual bodies, which are different from physical bodies in some important ways. For example, they don't need to eat food or drink water, aka physical matter, to stay alive. If they are slain, they don't just completely die. Their essence might scatter, or they might enter a weakened, latent state And maybe that will last for a long, long time, but it's not the same as the death of a physical body. Gods and other beings of greater power cannot manifest aspects of themselves on the material plane, as the ethereal plane is a barrier that blocks them. It is composed of the primal spirits or nature spirits of the world, the spirits of beasts and trees and rivers and so forth. Furthermore, the overseers, properly named the Tasari Dakana, enforce cosmic laws. And there is a great concordance between the primal spirits and the gods that the mortal world, the material plane, will not be used as a battleground or a prize to be won as it once was used during the First Age, the Age of Cataclysms. It is hypothetically possible for someone like a god or an archfiend to force his way into the material plane, but managing such a feat would require extremely exceptional circumstances and would be fraught with overwhelming consequences. So what about outsider beings of intermediate power or lesser power? Could they get into the material plane? The short answer is yes. Of course, how that could happen is not exactly simple or easy. Like a spellcaster could summon an elemental or a demon or a celestial, or there could be some kind of interplanar gate that gets opened. These magics bypass the ethereal barrier that blocks outer spirits from interloping into the material. Back to the topic of gods. We could think of the greater gods as greater spirits or superior spirits. They are spiritual beings of epic power. Most of them are elder celestials who originated long, long ago in the glorious domains of heaven. And most of them, more or less, retain their original forms, the way that they came into being originally in heaven. There are exceptions, though, such as the Tasari Dakana. Greater gods dwell either in one of the heavenly realms or somewhere on the astral plane. Below them are the regional gods, which are still superior spirits, but they're not quite as powerful or far-reaching. Most of them began as elder celestials who originated in heaven as well, but at some point they changed or transformed or maybe strayed farther. In fact, some of them are not even celestials. That's how much they've transformed. A powerful angelic spirit could have fallen unto such corruption that he became an archfiend. And he is treated as a god by his worshippers, so he is considered a deity in the setting, even though lacks the celestial creature type. Regional gods can be found in all of the outer planes. The outer gods would be those superior spirits who roamed the farthest of all. Too far, we could say. They fell unto madness and incomprehensible forms. The term outer god does not denote a power level, but rather that it dwells in the outer darkness. A great old one, basically. It could be as strong as a greater god, as in the void god that Illis encountered in that mythic story I told in the previous video. Or an outer god could have the power level of a regional god or a demigod. On a quick related note, I do want alignment to play an important role in the Ichoros setting. That's a big topic and really deserves its own video. I've got some interesting concepts where alignment is concerned. Again, not trying to totally reinvent the wheel, but rather make improvements to the wheel. As well, I'm working on a template that is used to convey the core information about each god. Ideally, there will be some interesting mythos and lore connected to each god. I like creating these stories, but of course, such stories will take time to come about. I'll tell one about Argus here in just a moment. So here's my working outline of this deity template. Name of the deity, whatever titles that the god has, what the category of god is, greater, regional, outer god. Of course, the divine domains that the deity has power over or authority over. I have two lines here for alignment, a primary alignment and secondary alignments, potentially plural there. This is where my mind has been recently, and I think this could be not just for gods, but really all kinds of creatures. So it should be pretty obvious. The primary alignment is really the core, the highest ideals of the god, or really just whatever the being is. And the secondary alignment or alignments are other tendencies or leanings, or at least acceptable in certain situations. There's a lot I could say, and really alignment does need its own video. Then we have the core virtues of the god and the core vices of the god. And as you can imagine, a more good aligned god is going to have more virtues than vices. And then vice versa, for an evil god, is going to have more vices than virtues. Type is referring to the creature type. Dwelling place is where that god resides, of course. And symbol for a holy symbol, or maybe an unholy symbol for an evil god. Then I just made some quick notes on types of things that I need to fill in for each god. An aesthetic description, the deity's role, temperament, motivations, goals, so basically the place in the cosmology and personality. A bit about the deity's history and dwelling place, bits about religious practices, rituals, doctrines, sacrifices that are made to this deity for those who worship or follow that god, and what afterlife is associated with the god. And I've put here the afterlife for followers, both intentional and unintentional followers. So an intentional follower would be someone who practices that religion, who specifically has faith and trust in that god, who worships that god, who puts that god as the highest aim or the highest value. An unintentional follower would be someone who acts out that deity's domain or characteristics or values, basically practices what that god represents. They embody the behavior and the personality of that spirit, even though they may not be aware of that god or may not know that they are practicing that religion, or at least aren't intending to do so. This is going to make more sense, of course, once I fill in the blanks and flesh out details and stories. Then I have this part here that I think is quite important regarding the interactions with mortals that the god is most known for. And I try to think of what are the different types of typical interactions that a deity might have with a person. What I've come up with are emotional drives, so you feel the emotions or the sensations within your body that the god is interacting with you or compelling you or influencing you in some way. Verbal, so the god literally is speaking and you can hear it. Written, for some sort of sacred text or holy books. Visible phenomena would be signs that are visible externally in the world, in the objective material space. And dreams and visions would be the internal visions, things that you might have while asleep, unconscious, or maybe just experiencing a vision while waking, but in a specific, special moment when the god communicates with you. So, using this template, I'll fill in what information I can regarding the god Argus the Watcher. If you remember, after Ilus the Lantern transformed the nameless outer god into the Tessari Decana, they were given the power to create one new god as a divine rite of initiation. They created Argus, known as the Watcher, the 100-eyed, the ever-standing, the vigilant one, citadel incarnate. He is a regional god associated with Bazagon. His domains are order and protection. Asterisk there because I'm going to need to create the protection domain. I'll probably need to create a lot of domains before this is all said and done. His primary alignment is lawful neutral. His secondary alignments, or maybe acceptable leanings, would be lawful good and lawful evil. His virtue is diligence, and his vice is pride. His creature type is celestial. His dwelling place is the Palace of Endless Vigil, which is on the astral plane, probably close to the glorious domains of heaven. His symbol is a tower with an eye, or a shield with an eye in the center. I'm going to read his lore and a story about him here in just 1 second. It'll come from Esper's Emporium of Esoterica, so that's going to fill in some of those other details. But I did want to touch briefly on my concept for the afterlife in connection with Argus. So this would pertain to a mortal person who in life worshipped Argus or who embodied the qualities of Argus. The spirit of the deceased is ushered to the Palace of Endless Vigil and placed upon a hallowed seal. If the spirit radiates light, it is given its own alcove, a station of waiting. If the spirit exudes mist or imposes darkness, it is imprisoned. Argus can call upon the spirits of deceased mortals at his palace whenever needed for service, any of them, whether the imprisoned ones or the ones that are in waiting readily. After a period of time in service, a spirit is again brought to the hallowed seal to receive its final judgment. Spirits deemed worthy are transformed into exalted. They have a permanent place of honor in the Palace of Endless Vigil, and they might even be granted welcome to enter certain parts of heaven. Their afterlife will involve cosmic vigilance and defense. Spirits deemed unworthy remain as prisoners, though they are called upon to serve in times of need. In rare cases, a spirit is too corrupted, too wicked, and it is cast into the border region of the dread domains of hell. Or perhaps it's taken as a prisoner to a citadel on hell's border. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that part works. In terms of Argus's interactions with mortals, he gives a moderate amount of emotional drives, a low amount of verbal interaction, a moderate amount of written, low amounts of visible phenomenon, and moderate dreams and visions. Now let's check out the Argus lore and a mythic story from Esper's Emporium of Esoterica. Citadel Incarnate. Argus the Watcher is a god of protection, strongholds, prisons, military training, discipline, perception, and vigilance. He is worshipped by soldiers, scouts, gladiators, and defenders of all kinds, as well as by beast trainers, dungeon wardens, and leaders who believe strongly in the ideal of order. Within the sprawling island metropolis of Bazagon stands one of the most well-defended citadels in the world, the Tower of 100 Eyes, named thus because Argus himself is said to have 100 eyes, which gaze in all directions and see all things. The tower's outer perimeter is a high wall with mounted magical ballistae and well-trained soldiers. The inner bailey leading to the tower is a gauntlet of soldier barricades manned by the Argus Legion. The gate eye gazes out from above the front gate. It is capable of seeing even invisible foes, and it releases blasts of magical force against interlopers. Inside the tower are multiple floors, guarded by elite soldiers, trained beasts, and a squad of Ichorite guardians. The third floor of the tower is composed of a great shrine. Atop a dais stands a calcified giant wearing ancient oxidized armor. This is the corpse of the aspect of Argus, who died many centuries ago after being assailed by the nature spirits of the world for 40 days without cease. Yet the spirit of Argus persists. He emboldens his faithful, doles out judgments to those brought before him, and in times of dire need, manifests an aspect of himself. Just a quick aside, in keeping consistent with the new cosmology that I'm developing, he would be manifesting aspects of himself only on outer planes, not on the material plane. Divine Champion, and I'm going to use this part to talk about his appearance. He stands 15 feet tall and appears as a giant man clad in ancient plate armor. His helmet is fully masked and covered in eyes. In one hand he carries a tower shield, also bearing numerous eyes, and in the other hand he wields a hooked poleaxe. With a mastery only a god can possess, Argus strikes at foes from all angles and all sides, ever ready to attack, faster than a praying mantis. Opponents that attempt to keep themselves far away from his flashing scythe find that it also flails out at a distance, as though a mighty chain sickle, which hooks them and draws them in. Complementing his battle prowess, Argus calls upon divine smites and other magic to withstand, rebuke, and strike down his enemies. Facing Argus in combat is an ordeal only the most legendary of heroes can withstand. The Argus Legion. The devoted of Argus serve many functions in Bazagon City. They watch over the island using the Apex Eye, a magical viewing device atop the Tower of 100 Eyes. They train soldiers to fight in war and beasts to serve for blood sport. They maintain the Grand Colosseum, the city's largest and most spectacular arena, and they operate the city's largest prison. The last bulwark of Bazagon. The age of cataclysms was drawing to a close. Gods, demon lords, titans, and other beings of tremendous power had battled for control of the material plane, and throughout their struggles they had slain or banished one another. During these conflicts, Illis the Lantern created a council of celestial arbiters known as the Tessari Decana, and gave them the power to create a single god, which was Argus the Watcher. This living citadel had defended Bazagon, a large island at the center of the world, and he was the last god alive when the warring came to an end. One day, Argus was standing atop the Tower of 100 Eyes, observing the groups of people rebuilding the city from the rubble. The Labyrinth Lord appeared, as though emerging from a trap door. Though Argus was not caught off guard, the sudden appearance of the Archfey surprised him. "How have you reached my tower top?" asked the god. "The defenses of this tower are many and great." The Labyrinth Lord looked at the many-eyed masked helm of the giant. "I'm a master of opening. To me, a lock puts up no more resistance than a blade of grass under your boot. Even walls part like veils at my command." "You are an intruder and a defier. You are not given leave to enter this place." Argus's tone was stern enough to send a hardened warrior to his knees. Yet the Fey Lord in his garish robes held fast. "It would seem that you are the defiant one, O Watcher. The Tasari Dakana have decreed that gods may not dwell within the world. Your place of rulership is in the celestial realm, beyond." "I defended this precious city and led my army to victory against one fell host after another." Argus loomed over the Fey. "When the demon Atankroni had slaughtered so many here, who was it that struck him down? And when his shattered form became 6 evil spirits, who was it that tracked each of them and dispelled them to the netherworld? If not for me, Bazagan would be no more than a haunted ruin. I was the last bulwark, and against me, the tides of destruction battered themselves to nothing. By law of this city, I am its protector and keeper. Thus, I remain." "You have spoken no untruth, mighty one, but the law of the Tasari Dakana is greater than that of any mortal cities. It was they who made you through the power of Ilis. You are beholden to their cosmic decree." "The Tasari Dakana are greater than no god. They are beholden to my decree." The Watcher tightened his grip on his poleaxe. "And so are you." The Archfey adjusted his hold on his own weapon, a staff topped with an emblem of a maze. "The world itself and its countless multitudes of spirits are in concordance with the Tasari Dakana. In the wake of these cataclysmic wars, they are wroth and would unite for vengeance." "They may come if they so choose. Let them take heed when I say that I shall not move. No sooner would a swarm of locusts move a mountain." "So be it," said the Labyrinth Lord. "My curiosity is satisfied." With that, he slipped away, knowing that he had provoked the god's ire. Though the Tasari Dakana's decree was not entirely clear on the status of an archfey such as himself, he decided it best to take sanctuary deep below one of Bazagan's smaller islands. No long span of time had passed when the nature spirits of the world descended upon the Tower of 100 Eyes. From across the realms of the material plane they came, spirits of wind and storm, beast and plant, summer and winter, and every kind of natural force imaginable. Argus fended them off for 40 days. Their assaults did not cease throughout this entire period. When the siege ended, Argus still stood. But he had been slain. His armor, shield, and weapons were oxidized, and he resembled a giant of patina and calcification. His spirit was flung to the outer reaches of the astral plane. He might have been lost for eons, but the Tasari Dakana could not abide such a fate. They sought out and located his diminished soul and escorted it to a place of honor in a celestial palace. "We revere you for defending Bazagan when all other hope was lost. Now here is where you shall dwell. Rest and regain your strength. The age of mortals is dawning, and they will need your guidance." Another video that I need to make is about the 3 different ages of Ichoros: the Age of Cataclysms, the Age of Conquest, and the Age of Requiem, which is the current age, and a young one at that. Well, I think that will do it for this video. Please don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to help build the momentum of this grand project. You can also become a supporter on Patreon to get some exclusive monthly rewards. And if you're interested in getting a copy of Esper's Emporium, which has bits of this world lore all throughout it, there are PDF and hardcover versions available. Links for everything are down in the video description. And a special thanks to all my current patrons, foremost of which are these fine fellows: Adam Wood, Vince Vallely, Nick Thy Pirate King, Locke Monroe, Nicholas A., and Lucius Tenebri. Until next time, my brave companions, if you hear the call to adventure that resounds from the mysterious beyond, you would be wise to heed it. And as always, may your adventures be many.